Hello and welcome to another edition of the Morning Brew. That is NTN's morning update coming to you live from the Government Information Services studio. Thank you so much for joining us. Today is Wednesday, the 5th of August 2020. My name is Jessie Leonce. We do have a special guest in studio in the person of Ms. Charletta Charles. She's the Environmental Health Officer coming to speak to us today on Vector Awareness Week, which we are in right now, and there has been an alarming rate of dengue cases here on island, and so she will be talking to us about that in just a moment. A special good morning to you, Charletta.
Good morning.
Wonderful. But before we get into this morning's interview, I just want to have you listen to an update coming from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. It's an update on the COVID-19 patients. As I hope you are aware, we have had 25 cases of the coronavirus here in St. Lucia, confirmed on island, 22 of which have recovered fully, and 3 of which are being treated at the respiratory hospital. We're hearing some word on some progress. 2 of these cases doing very well, doing clinically well. However, they are still testing positive for COVID-19. We get the details from Dr. Sharon Belmar-George, the Chief Medical Officer at the Ministry of Health. Take a listen.
St. Lucia has recorded a total of 25 COVID-19 cases to date. 22 of these cases have fully recovered and 3 patients remain in care at the respiratory hospital and remain stable. A total of 3,548 tests have been conducted to date. 2 of the patients have recovered clinically and do not have any signs and symptoms of COVID-19. However, they still record positive COVID-19 test results. The last confirmed case is an 86-year-old gentleman who is recovering well in care. All of the family members, friends, and healthcare workers that have been disclosed to the contact tracing team have been screened and tested, and to date the results have been negative. The health team continues to monitor and investigate for the source of infection. As we continue with the phased reopening of the country, the risk for introduction of COVID-19 is increased. The public is advised that all of the protocols are still in place, including the reduced numbers for public transportation and the protocols for the private sector establishments. These also include the use of face masks in public places and to maintain safe physical distances from others. The Ministry of Health, we once again reiterate the importance of quarantine for returning nationals and visitors, as it is a good measure to minimize the risk of the transmission of COVID-19. And it is with this we ask that everyone adheres to the 14-day quarantine time, and also for persons to stay in quarantine for the full period. This action is expected to protect the health and the safety of every individual within our country. We also appeal to everyone to continue to support our national effort to minimize the threat of COVID-19 on our island. We continue to advise, as always, the importance of the standard recommendations for infection prevention and control. These include regular hand washing with soap and water, or the use of hand sanitizer when soap and water is not available, and also to cover your mouth and nose with disposable tissues when coughing and sneezing. The Ministry of Health, we will continue providing regular updates on COVID-19.
That was word coming from Dr. Sharon Belmar-George, the Chief Medical Officer at the Ministry of Health and Wellness, letting us in on the 2 patients that have recovered clinically but do not show any signs and symptoms of COVID-19. However, they still record positive COVID-19 test results. The last confirmed case is an 86-year-old gentleman who is recovering well in care. All of the family members, friends, and healthcare workers disclosed in the contact tracing team have been screened and tested, and to date the results have all been negative. The health team continues to monitor and investigate the source of the infection. So the work is not done. They continue to probe into the source of this infection that the 86-year-old gentleman contracted. So stay tuned for an update on that in a subsequent broadcast. In the meantime, we turn to Ms. Charlotte Charles. Again, a special good morning to you. She is the Environmental Health Officer and speaking to us in observance of Vector Awareness Week. So, special good morning to you.
Okay. So, hi, good morning. Thank you so much for having me on today's show.
Wonderful. As we were speaking before the program began, you were just letting me in on the rates of dengue that have increased so far. Nothing, unusual about it at this time of year. We're in the midst of the Atlantic hurricane season. Heavier rainfall means potential breeding grounds increased for vectors. Speak to us about this situation in terms of the trends for dengue and other vector-borne illnesses right now in St. Lucia.
Okay, so St. Lucia is no stranger to dengue. For years, we've been talking about it at the Ministry of Health. There have been a number of years where we've had increases in the cases, where we've seen decreases and so forth. We've seen outbreaks of other vector-borne diseases, like recently we had an issue of chikungunya. Even more recent, we had Zika virus. So we're not new to vector-borne diseases. Last year, we saw an increase in cases of leptospirosis as well. So it's nothing new to us. But this year, since the start of the rainy season, we've seen an alarming increase in the number of cases of dengue fever that the ministry has recorded. So up to date, I think it's about 40-something cases thus far. And this is very alarming to us, considering that dengue fever has the potential to kill. We have unfortunately lost St. Lucians to the disease of dengue fever. So it is very alarming to us at the Ministry of Health. So we want to take this Vector Awareness Week to really raise awareness of the disease and the vector which is responsible for the spread of the disease. Okay. And that is the Aedes aegypti mosquito.
Okay, and of course, in the midst of Vector Awareness Week, talk to us about this observance, the theme for this year's observance, as well as the target, because I know this year you are targeting specifically community members.
Okay, good. So Vector Awareness Week originally started back in 2013, and that was in an attempt to raise awareness of vector-borne diseases and environmental health conditions which contribute to the proliferation of vectors. So in 2013, we had that the situation of chikungunya, right? So it was really important that we get that information out there, and how better to do that than to make it a week of activities. But for this year, unfortunately, we were limited in terms of the activities that we could have had because of the recommendations for social distancing. At the time of the planning for this week, we were unable to have any social gatherings. So it's only recently that we've been able to have social gatherings. So this year, the theme for this year's Vector Awareness Week is My Actions, My Community, My Health. And what we really want to do is to raise awareness in the sense of the actions that you take as a community member, the actions that you take as a householder. It affects your community and ultimately affects your health and the health of your community. So we really wanted to tie that in terms of my actions, my community, my health, the things that you do around your home, the buckets, the containers, the articles and items that you have that breed mosquitoes around your home, that contributes to how to diseases in your community, and then your overall health. So we really want to this year's target to be the general public and their personal responsibility. That's really the stress of this year's activity, your personal responsibility. What can you do as a householder to stop the spread of dengue fever and, of course, vector-borne diseases like leptospirosis?
Okay, give me the theme again.
My actions, our actions, our community, our health.
Our actions, our community, our health. We're due for our first break this morning. We are speaking to Ms. Charlotte Charles in observance of Vector Awareness Week, noting the alarming rate of dengue cases here on island this year. And she will be speaking to us after this break about some of the expectations of the general public at this time to reduce the rates of vector-borne illnesses here in St. Lucia. Stay with us.
war with a virus ready to harm us. Panic is not the answer. We can win this together.
Often use hand sanitizer. Better yet, use soap and water.
We must protect each other if we are to beat this corona.
Together let us win this war. Be a soldier for St. Lucia. Together let us win this war. Be a soldier, together we can beat this corona.
So you don't become the next case. Avoid touching your face. I'm sure you've been told so. Handshakes and hugging are a no.
Advice, give you the please. Cover your mouth and your nose if you cough or sneeze.
Practice social distancing and avoid large social gatherings.
Together let us win this war. Be a soldier for St. Lucia. Together let us win this war. St. Lucia, be a soldier. Together we can beat this corona.
For further information, please contact the hotline at 311 or the Bureau of Health Education at 468-5349.
Thank you so much for staying tuned. If you're just joining us, we are live on NTN with the Morning Brew. That is NTN's morning update for today, Wednesday, the 5th of August, 2020. Now, while St. Lucians were getting corona-wise, we had the dengue fever creeping up on us. And in studio, if you're just joining us, with me is Ms. Charlotte Charles, and she's from the Environmental Health Unit to speak with us on Vector Awareness Week that is happening this week, and also speaking to us about the alarming rates of dengue fever here in St. Lucia for the year so far. If we could continue with the conversation on the vector-borne illnesses, can you speak to the work of the unit so far in trying to contain and to manage these vector-borne illnesses here on island? In addition to the Vector Awareness Week that we're having this week, can you just take it a step further in the engagement of the public, the general public so far, in taking personal responsibility for keeping their surroundings clean, ensuring that they keep the Aedes aegypti, among other vectors, at bay? Okay,
so in terms of the department's responsibility and the government's responsibility, our department at Environmental Health, we have that mandate to address the vector control situation. So we have that mandate for us to do mosquito control, control of rodents, and control of other vermin with the possibility to spread diseases. So we're not shying away from that on a daily basis. We have officers going out to a number of different communities. They go out and they do their inspections. They're looking at active and potential mosquito breeding sites. They're looking at harborage for rats, rodents, general sanitations within communities to discourage the proliferation of other vectors that we don't normally think of, such as flies and cockroaches, right? So we look at general sanitation on a whole. However, what we have realized is that our resources are not adequate to give all the communities in St. Lucia all the attention that they require. So we have a population of about 180,000 people in St. Lucia. We have maybe about 20 vector control officers. So there is absolutely no way that we can give the communities the attention that we would like to give them in terms of going into communities and doing that education. So we need to encourage community members to take some level of responsibility for their own actions. So we are always willing to give technical advice. So people would call the department, and especially in recent times, about the last month or so, we have seen that increase in the amount of rainfall that we've been having in St. Lucia. So we have seen that increase, and with that increase, we have seen increases in mosquito populations and increases in the complaints because, you know, rainfalls, the containers that we have around our home, they collect water and they breed mosquitoes. So we have been seeing that increase. But what we want to point out or highlight to the public is that these are the little things that you can do around your home. You don't have to wait for the Ministry of Health or officers from the Ministry of Health to come to your yard and say, hey, you need to cover that drum. You have that responsibility. You should know that you should cover that drum. So this is essentially what we want to do.
And that's nothing new. I mean, every year we see the increase in rainfall. It's the typical thing for our neck of the woods. What has been the response, particularly in this COVID reality, the response to members of the community in your going out and trying to do outreach to the best of your ability? What has been their response, especially considering COVID? Because a lot of people would have been, like I opened with, so zoned in on coronavirus and avoiding coronavirus with using of the masks and the physical distancing, that they perhaps may have forgotten about the things that that obtained before.
And I think this is exactly what happened. Everybody got so consumed with the corona, and of course it was very important. It is still very important, and it's still a priority at the ministry that we address the situation as effectively as possible. So initially, after the shutdown, when we resumed operations, things were initially slow because people were very, members of the public were very skeptical about having these officers come into the yards, doing the treatment. Their concern was, but you've been to so many other houses before, you might have gotten corona from down the road, and then you brought it to my house, and so forth. So we did get some level of resistance from the community members, but what I think it needs to be highlighted is that we have not had any outbreaks of corona in the community. So it is, I think it's safe to say that we have very minimal risk of having an officer go to somebody's house and then come to your house to do an inspection. The other thing is that most times our officers don't go into your home. They will do the inspections around the house, the outside of your house. So we don't want persons to be fearful that this is a risk factor for them. The risk is very minimal. And if we don't come and do it and you don't do it, that means the problem of dengue fever will continue to increase. So dengue fever is endemic to St. Lucia. It has been here for so many years, and it's not going to be going away anytime soon unless we don't get our mosquito population issues under control.
Okay, so at this point in time, we're seeing improved response to persons coming in the community, and of course, the environmental health unit. I'm certain they will be observing the protocols.
So we are definitely observing protocols. Our staff, we wear our mask because the mask is still a requirement. So we still wear our mask when we go out to community members. We use our hand sanitizers whenever possible. We've urged our officers to wash their hands whenever the opportunity arises, because you want to do as much washing of hands and sanitizing as you possibly can, because you really want to reduce that risk, not just to the household members, but we have a responsibility to our staff as well to ensure that they are safe.
Absolutely.
So we have been observing these protocols. So we want to encourage members of the public, when our officers do come to your home, we are coming to grant you a service. We're coming to assist. The risk to you is very minimal. So we look forward to your cooperation. And that cooperation has steadily been increasing. Like I said, when we just resumed after the shutdown, people were very skeptical. But as time has elapsed, people are becoming a bit more, welcoming to the officers when they come around their homes to do the inspections.
Okay. And there's another factor during the COVID period that I want to bring up. There were interruptions to the services from the St. Lucia Solid Waste Management Authority. Yes. And when you take into consideration there's a likelihood of individuals perhaps indiscriminately dumping. Can you just speak to the significance of persons always looking at their property, inspecting their property? Perhaps they may not be living at the particular place, but just always going back to check to make sure that there isn't any disposed waste that is there that can be a breeding ground potentially for vectors, and just looking around their places, just general suggestions that you may have for keeping the environment clean and thus reducing the contracting of vector-borne diseases.
Okay, so with like you mentioned earlier on, we did see that interruption in the collection service of garbage in most of our community, well, most if not all of our communities during our initial phases of COVID-19. This has affected not just our mosquito populations, but it affects our rodent populations as well, because rats require three things for them to survive, and that is water, food, and shelter. In a lot of our communities, we provide all of this for rats to thrive. And then we sometimes, but why is the rats coming? It's because of the little things that we do within our communities, even within our villages. Sometimes we walk in small villages or even within our city, and we look into the drains and we see food scraps. You find people eat their chicken, their fries, the fast food restaurants, and they eat, they're walking and they throw the bone away, they throw the fries away, you know. It just becomes a very unsanitary situation, and that encourages the proliferation of rats. So as much as we have been talking about the dengue outbreak, let's not forget that we have those issues with rats, and these rats have the potential to spread leptospirosis, they have the potential to spread hunter fever, salmonellosis, rat bite fever, so they can spread a number of different diseases. So the overall general sanitation is definitely an issue of concern for us. One of the other things I think within the shutdown, and it happened coincidentally that we started experiencing drought conditions. And I think this has been another factor that compounded the mosquito situation, because a lot of communities where there was never a problem with the consistency of the municipal water supply, some of these communities started experiencing problems with the water supply, and therefore people were collecting in drums and containers, and some places for a week or two they wouldn't have water. So there were a lot of water holding containers, and we're not at the ministry. We encourage general sanitation and washing of hands and having water for you to do these things. However, the problem is not the collection, but it's the way the water is stored. You can have 10 drums of water, buckets, and they're properly stored. You don't have a problem with rats, you don't have a problem with mosquitoes. But if the water isn't properly securely stored, then it leaves that water accessible to mosquitoes, rats, and any other vermin which can potentially contaminate the water that you use.
Okay, going back to Vector Awareness Week, just to reinforce some of the points, some of the activities. Well, you did mention that you guys were limited severely by COVID-19 in terms of planning, events and whatnot. But speak to us about the public service announcements and how often they will be in rotation. So just remind the public on the ways that they could keep their environs clean and clear to reduce the risk of vector-borne illnesses.
Okay, so normally in our past years we would have used the week itself of vector awareness to host different activities in different communities. However, this year we're going to use this week as a springboard for other activities. So we don't want it to just be this week, oh, it's vector awareness and we're going to have a cleanup in this community, or we're going to have an activity in this community. No, we want this to be the springboard for the start of a number of different vector control activities within communities. We will be doing things like loudspeaker announcements. We want to resume our fogging operations. We're looking to have some community engagements, meetings, cleanup, source reduction campaigns, and education campaigns. So we have, and we're currently filming some PSFs. We have done some. We're currently filming additional. We're hoping to have that, those that we're working on right now, we're hoping to have that on social media. In fact, we've already started putting stuff out on social media and so forth. So we're trying to reach the masses with the most economic way that we could possibly do that, because of course the resources are very much limited, but we live in a digital age and we think that we should be able to use the resources that we have to reach as many people as we possibly can.
Okay, wonderful. And on that note, I want to go to a news report based on the work of your department, Environmental Health Department. And St. Lucia As the economy is reopening in a phased approach, the Department of Environmental Health has been working feverishly establishing protocols for each sector with the health and safety of individuals as the number one priority, all while restoring livelihoods. We do have a news report coming from the Environmental Health Department. Do take a listen.
The emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in not only a health crisis, but an economic crisis as well. Hundreds of jobs have been lost as part of the economic fallout of the pandemic. The Ministry of Health and Wellness have been combating the virus on several fronts, including ensuring the health and safety of all St. Lucians and restoring the livelihoods of the public. The Department of Environmental Health in the Ministry of Health and Wellness has been working with stakeholders in the various sectors in an effort to establish protocols for reopening. Senior Environmental Officer in the Department of Environmental Health, Emerson Vitalis, indicated that as of late, the majority of applications have been coming from the sporting organizations and caterers.
And what I want the public to understand is that within the development of those protocols, the essential goal is about protecting public health and public safety. And they do come to us, those applications, we review them, we assess, and the aim is not to shut down or to prevent any activity from happening, but the aim is to do it in a controlled environment, an environment which promotes public health and safety. And that's what the protocols aim to do at the end of the day. So we have been working with quite a bit of sporting institutions, sporting organizations, as far as Schwizel, also some of the caterers who are coming in and they want to again, begin the catering business, to gain revenue and, to serve the public. So we have been working with quite a bit of them in developing those protocols and assessing the establishments for compliance. And I must say most of them are compliant because they recognize that without compliance they really can't operate and they can't provide that level of safety which we are engendering from the public.
The Senior Environmental Health Officer asserted that the department's priority remains protecting lives and restoring livelihoods. By establishing protocols, the Department of Environmental Health is able to ensure a safe transition in the country's reopening.
Again, the aim of environmental health in this whole fight against COVID is to ensure that the public remains safe. We have written quite a bit of protocols from then, and what we're continuously doing is to monitor those protocols, monitor the establishments which are opened, and again to ensure the safety of the general public of St. Lucia.
As the reopening of St. Lucia continues in a phased approach, officials assure that the health and safety of the people of St. Lucia remain a top priority. From the Government Information Service, I am Janelle Norville.
Thank you, Janelle, for that news report on the Department of Environmental Health working feverishly to restore livelihoods as much as possible in this new normal following coronavirus, the onset of coronavirus in St. Lucia. We are speaking to someone from the Environmental Health Department in observance of Vector Awareness Week this week. And I just want to turn back to you, Charlotte, to speak on ways in which persons can report cases of indiscretions in the community, whether it be indiscriminate dumping. All of these factors can lead to the vector-borne breeding for vectors, and thereby pushing the whole idea of the transmission of vector-borne illnesses in St. Lucia. So if you could just speak to ways in which that persons can contact the department if they see anything in their community that's wrong.
Okay. So in terms of contacting our department, the members of the public can call us at 468-3700. That is our number at the Department of Environmental Health. They can give us a call. We have been receiving calls of mosquitoes being a nuisance to people. So we try to encourage persons to look out for the mosquito breeding sites within your community. Within your yard first, and then if you have done that, you still have no issues with mosquitoes, we encourage persons to be part of a community and approach your neighbors, speak with your neighbors very nicely. A lot of the times people are very hesitant to have a conversation with their neighbors, and I think that sense of community is something that has been lost throughout the years. I think the sense of community that we had when I was a child, this is not what we currently have at this point in time. But I think it's all about the approach that we speak with our neighbors, the way that we speak to our neighbors, how we approach them, our tone of voice, our mannerisms, you know. Sometimes you could just have a very friendly conversation. Sometimes you look into your neighbor's yard and you peep in and you're seeing these containers, you're seeing it's uncovered, and you know yours are covered, so you don't think the mosquitoes are coming from you. You can speak to your neighbor and say, hey, Miss Jane, boy, I tell you, all my skin's scratching me, you know, I've been bitten by mosquitoes, you know, and you wait for your neighbor's reaction, right? And then you say, oh, but you know, you check your jam already, you know. You try to engage them.
Be suave and
as
tactful.
I know, right? So you try to engage them as best you know how, friendly, and not make persons feel that you're attacking them and saying, no, you know, you're the one who's breeding all these mosquitoes, and I will call the Department of Health for you, and so forth. So it's all about the approach, how we speak to our neighbors, how we can get our communities to rally, to actually achieve our overall objectives. So this is what we really want persons to do. So as much as possible, if people have or community groups are seeing an issue with mosquitoes in their communities or rats within their communities, and you want to take on a project within your community, you want the support of the ministry, we're encouraging our community members to give us a call. We're going to give as much as assistance as we possibly can to address the problems within the community.
Well, you just mentioned rats, and we speak a lot about the Aedes aegypti mosquito and the vector-borne illnesses that are usually related to mosquitoes. But if you could just touch on, as we wrap up, you know, the situation with the rats, how people can identify if they have a rat problem in their area and how to deal with it.
Okay, so in terms of rats, the biggest issue for us is that rats have the potential to spread diseases like leptospirosis, and I mentioned a few others earlier on. So they have the potential to spread those diseases. So we want persons to be mindful in terms of how you dispose of your garbage, especially your food scraps. So I know people would clean chicken or fish, these food scraps, after they've eaten, and they would just drop it in the bin. We would like to discourage members of the public from doing so. You put them all together in a bag, and you only put out your garbage on garbage collection days. Because when the garbage is out and maybe collection is on Friday and today is Wednesday, that means that there is access, there is a potential that rats can come in to that garbage, because the smell of the food would attract them, right? Because rats, just like they like food,
and it's a free fall. It's just by the road there,
right? So that food, the smell of that food would attract them not just to the bin but to your yard, because this is where they're getting food. They'd eventually make their way into your yard, into your house as well. If you're one of those persons who like to grow your own home garden, so you may have things like lettuce and mangoes and bananas or whatever fruits that you do have, tomatoes or so and so forth. This is the perfect opportunity for them to now come into your gardens. So you'd go pick your produce from your home garden, you'd take it to your sink, maybe not wash it properly enough, and then you may get sick. Now, a lot of people tend to think that you get leptospirosis by the bite of a rat, but that is actually not the case. You could get leptospirosis from coming into contact with contaminated urine or feces of an animal. And it's not just rats. You have dogs, which have the potential to carry leptospirosis. Then you have animals like cattle and pigs with the potential to spread leptospirosis and have leptospirosis as well. So we're encouraging persons to be mindful of how you dispose of your garbage. Look at the things around your home that may encourage rats to live there. So in terms of old fridges and old stoves, they tend to use the insulation of these old appliances to build their nests. If you have old clothes, they would actually gnaw at the clothes, they would shred them up, and they would use these for their nests. Soft material, and rats reproduce very quickly. You have different types of rats as well. You have those that live in the tree, we call them roof rats. They're normally on the wires, the electrical poles. They're in the coconut trees, the mango trees, the fruit trees. You have your ground rat, which we normally see running within our cities. they burrow into the ground. So sometimes you may see the holes, you think it's crab holes, but it's actually rat holes. And then you have your house mouse, your regular old house mouse. So all of these rats and rodents have the potential to spread diseases. So based on where you see your problem, you have to know how to address it. Okay, so if you hear them on the roof, if you're looking to set a trap, you most likely you're gonna need to put that trap up in your ceiling, or put that poison tied down to something in the ceiling or on the trees or so forth. So you have to know the type that you're dealing with and how you can best address it. Okay. And if you don't know, please feel free to call us, and we're more than happy to give you our technical advice. And if we are available, we will even come into your home and help you with that.
Okay, wonderful. Any final words before we close?
Okay, and what I really want to leave with the general public is to take personal responsibility of your household, personal responsibility of your community, because the actions that we do, the small things that we do around our home, it makes a big difference. So what we want people to do is to just take a few minutes, walk around your home, look for active and potential mosquito breeding sites, get rid of them, turn over your unused containers, get rid of your old appliances that may be a harbor for rats and mosquitoes. Look for the signs of a rodent infestation. Do you see the droppings? Do you see them gnawing at your door, at your cupboards? Do you see them gnawing at the fruits in the yard? Do you see mosquitoes around? If you see mosquitoes around, most likely they're breeding in or around your home, or maybe it may just even be at your neighbor's house. So they're breeding around, they're never too far, they have a very short flight range, and they will not leave Castries and come to Viewport, you know? So most likely if you see them around, they're breeding around your home. So we just want people to bear that in mind and take that personal responsibility, and remember our actions, our community, and our health.
Thank you very much for that. Ms. Charlotta Charles, the Environmental Health Officer, coming in to speak to us on the occasion of Vector Awareness Week. Thank you so much for sitting in with us. Thank you very much. We do hope you could come back again to give us an update.
Definitely.
It's been a very enjoyable interview. As we close for this morning's Morning Brew, that is NTN's morning update on the work of the government of St. Lucia, we just want to close with an update on the Bubblecation campaign. With the reopening of our borders in St. Lucia, travelers from the travel bubble have begun visiting St. Lucia. Caribcation recently introduced its latest marketing campaign, Bubblecation, where travelers from countries within the designated travel bubble are able to visit St. Lucia. These visitors are required to submit a negative PCR COVID-19 test result prior to arrival into St. Lucia within 7 days of travel. All arriving passengers from within the bubble must have traveled directly from a country within the bubble and have been in that country for at least 21 days. We close with this report from Anicia Antoine. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Jessie Leon, signing off for now from the Morning Brew. Do enjoy the rest of your day and see you tomorrow morning.
The Caribbean's leading destination marketing brand, Caribcation, has introduced its latest marketing campaign, Bubblecation, where travelers from countries within the designated travel bubble can reconnect with family and friends or enjoy a romantic getaway in St. Lucia. SLTA's Public Relations Manager, Jareen Georges, explained that the bubble countries approved by the Department of Health and Wellness currently include Antigua, Barbuda, Aruba, Anguilla, Bahamas, Barbados, Bermuda, Bonaire, British Virgin Islands, Curacao, Dominica, Grenada, Guyana, Jamaica, Montserrat, St. Bartholomew, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Martin, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Trinidad and Tobago, and Turks and Caicos.
Now, visitors within the bubble countries who have been within one of the bubble jurisdictions for at least 21 days are eligible to be a part of Bubblecation. So they are able to come to St. Lucia and would be exempt from quarantine. However, they are required to obtain a negative PCR COVID-19 test prior to arrival in St. Lucia, and that test must be obtained no more than 7 days prior to arrival in St. Lucia. Additionally, Visitors from the bubble countries are subject to all on-island protocols, and that includes airport screening, wearing of masks in public, and observing physical distancing.
Marketing Manager for Caribbean and Events, Christopher Gustav, indicated that SLTA looks forward to welcoming back Caribbean brothers and sisters through Bubblecation, which for the authority would be a wonderful avenue to again share common cultures and friendship. The important Caribbean market welcomes well over 85,000 visitors annually, and with the commencement of commercial flights within the region, a positive growth trajectory is anticipated. The Public Relations Manager indicated that individuals within the bubble desirous of traveling to St. Lucia are to prefill the mandatory arrival registration form located on www.stlucia.org/COVID-19. Additionally, visitors can utilize www.caribcation.org to assist in direct bookings of their accommodation at a wider variety of authentic community properties, which include villas, Airbnb properties, and small hotels.
Airlines around the region, including Caribbean Airlines, Inter-Caribbean, Air Antilles, and One Caribbean, have committed to serving the region with the resumption of service. Travelers should, however, check with the airlines for their flight schedules. The health and safety of local communities remain paramount with the continued responsible phased approach to the reopening of the tourism sector. With that said, the St. Lucia Tourism Authority, through its Caribcation brand, will work with approved operators, including accommodation properties, car rentals, restaurants, tour operators, shopping centers, taxi associations, yachting and water-based adventure tour operators in providing a safe visitor experience. We also invite these approved operators to sign up at www.caribcation.org or call 458-7101 for more information.
Interested approved operators should sign up at www.caribcation.org or call 1758-458-7101 for more information. From the Government Information Service, I am Anicia Antoine reporting.